Hey guys, Julia here. Welcome back to the channel. Whew. February was a busy one, which is why I've been a little MIA, but honestly, I'm just happy to be able to film this Plan With Me video because it was looking a little bleak, not gonna lie. February, for some reason, is just always a little bonkers. Last year, I didn't even do a Plan With Me video. It was just like a setup flip through situation. So this is actually my first March Plan With Me video, and I'm pretty freaking excited about how this theme turned out. Let me know what your favorite spread ends up being down in the comments, and yeah, let's hop into it. All right, so this month's theme was another Patreon selected theme, and man, these choices this month were legit. I honestly would have been just as excited for any of them, but the theme this month is clocks and time. And for the quote page, I made this fun neutral background with stars in Procreate, and I'm going to just paste that in. I'm actually going to leave a link down in the description for this background. I'm posting it over on my Patreon page for free. So yeah, if you end up liking this theme or just want some extra flair, I'll leave that down below for you. For the quote, I sketched out some traditional looking serif lettering on some off-white paper I had around, and the quote is a Deftones lyric. Time will see us realign. You guys know I love me some Deftones, so I'm not even gonna go there. But yeah, the whole clocks and time theme I thought was relevant because of daylight savings time this month, because of this weird state of waiting and time distortion, waiting on things to open up, waiting on the vaccine. And an interesting thing I learned, in old Roman calendars, the year actually started with March, so I thought that was pretty neat too. And I wanted to add some worn out texture to this, so I'm wadding up the paper and straightening it back out a couple times, and I really loved how this turned out. It just instantly gave the page more interest, so I'm going to glue that down and add some washi tape on top to make it look like it's just tape there, even though it's glued. And this is that Amanda Rach Lee washi tape. I do believe it's in the light neutral set, but I'll leave all the supplies down in the description per usual. Finishing off the quote page, I'm just going to add these little groupings of 4 lines, and this actually relates to the 4 quarters of an hour. Super subtle tie-in there that also happens to look cute. For the cover page, I'm using my Cricut fine liners to draw in one of those vintage looking desk clocks. I'm not sure if these clocks have a particular name, but when looking for reference images, I kept coming across Howard Miller clocks, so I used a Howard Miller clock as a base reference, but ended up just doing whatever I wanted to make it look delicate and vintage looking. I even added a little handle or something at the top just for another little fancy element. It's actually pretty simple to make this look more complex than it is. I filled in different areas with very basic shapes, swirly S's, U-shapes, lines, and dots, and yeah, it added to the texture of the entire clock. So I wasn't quite sure at first how I wanted to color everything in. I knew I wanted it to look more delicate, so for the most part, I tried to keep the filling in part pretty minimal to give it the look and impression of color, but without going full on solid. I think at least with these markers, it would have been a little much. And because I can't leave the page white for some reason, I'm adding in more of those groups of lines and some stars with a super fine 0.005 brown fine liner. Oh, and this tie-in for the spread, I'm using bits of that same background print from the quote page as faux washi, and man, I was really excited about A, this being used, like the scraps being used, and B, how this sort of made everything look more cohesive. Okay, moving on to the monthly spread. I'm going back to my basic bitch grid. Last month I tried a smaller calendar with important dates along the bottom, but I found out pretty quickly that did not do it for me. It was harder to visualize what a week looked like as far as meetings and deadlines go, and it just took way too long to reference. So yeah, back to the comfort of the grid calendar with zero shame. I love to try out different layouts, y'all. That's part of the Bujo fun, but I'm really realistic about things when they aren't functional, so yeah. I loved how the lettering turned out for this one. Whatever font I use as a reference for the lettering, I have way too many, so I don't even remember which one it was. I used it in bold italic for this reference, and hot take, serif lettering is pretty hard to get down, honestly. There's a lot of like little nuances in how the serifs connect to the letters, but really fun exercise when you really get down to it. All right, now for the star of the show. I'm drawing in a super fancy grandfather clock, starting off with that same fine liner, and again, this is actually pretty simple to draw, but definitely sketch it out first because it's made up of really simple shapes and lines. I did mix two different references for this because I fell in love with this first reference photo, but it didn't have the weights and the gong, and so I just added that in, and bam, custom grandfather clock. I had the same sort of issue here, not really knowing how I wanted to color this in. The markers were too solid. Even trying to do a little bit of color just didn't work. So I decided to go back to that faux watercolor technique that I used last month to give it a softer overall look. For this, I used my trusty palette paper, scribbled on it with a Tombow, and used a brush to fill in the clock. I also had a small spray bottle with water close by to get a lighter wash as well. It took some working and some experimenting, but I do love how it ended up looking in the end. After getting all of the color in, I outlined it once more with a zebra click art pen just to have that outline pop a bit more, and there we have it, folks. I finished this spread off with those same lines, stars, and washi tape to tie it all in together like a bow. Just tied it all up. Just kidding, I also added my YouTube growth tracker and just some little somethings to finish this spread off. Moving on to my habit tracker, I'm cutting out another print of that background texture, taking up a little more than half of the page. For the actual tracker, I made this clock-like round tracker graphic in Adobe Illustrator. In the latest update, they added in a repeat function that made this much easier to make, but it was still a bit of a challenge getting everything to fit in that circle. So this will track 4 of my usual habits, and I'm super excited to see how this turns out at the end of the month. Under the habit tracker, I'm putting in my focus check-in. My mood tracker has completely disappeared, but I decided to include it in my reflection journal instead because I think it'll make more sense to have my mood next to my daily reflection, so there's some context to what maybe directly reflected my mood each day. So this is my focus, my 4 focuses for the year. And I'm just adding those headers here and calling that good. On over to the night log, aka meal tracker, aka TV and movie tracker. Pretty simple setup per usual. For the header, I'm hitting up that bold italic lettering again, along with some gear windows and a fancy watch clock hand. I actually wanted to add in some other fancy clock hands, but they would have ended up being way too small, so this was kind of that compromise, which I'm not mad at. I do really love how the spread turned out as well. The last spread I'm setting up this month is, of course, the first weekly spread, and the rolling weekly is the weekly of choice this time around. To reference the whole clock thing, I'm writing in the date numbers in Roman numerals, but keeping the other lettering pretty basic since there's not a lot of extra room there. Over on the side, I'm sketching in an hourglass. Not necessarily a clock, but still a way to gauge the passage of time. And even though I don't own one, wait, why don't I own an hourglass? I need to fix that. But I do love watching the sand flow, and these things can get so beautiful and intricate, or just be just as beautiful with a modern and minimal design. But I'm using the same techniques I've been using all along with this month's doodles. I did do some stippling where the sand is. Stippling is just creating shadows with lots of little dots, but I had that same sort of issue. I don't even know if it's really an issue, but I had that issue with the hourglass, so I did end up going over the base coloring with the faux watercolor, and it just brought everything together. Oh, and I left a little area for my side quests under the hourglass there. The last page is quick and easy for my rolling task list. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, this is where all my to-dos go that don't have to be done on a particular day go. So I write them down here, and once I do finish it, I fill in a bullet and I draw a dot under the day that I complete the task. And yeah, up top I do have a little room for a doodle, so I'm just drawing in a clock-like border. I didn't use a particular reference for this, but I think of this type of time border mostly on outdoor public clocks. Now I'm just adding in that usual sprinkle of line, stars, and washi, and the spread is complete, and I'm really, really happy with this one as well. I'm 4 for 4, which is pretty awesome. If you guys are digging this theme as much as I am and you want to recreate it, this month's Patreon stickers and printables are live, and this month's set is pretty stunning if I do say so myself. There's blank calendars, color sheets, and even that crazy habit tracker that I used in my journal. Tiers start at just $2 a month, and I'd really love to have you join the collection crew. With that said, let's head into the final flip through. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you sooner rather than later in the next one. Bye guys. And if you like this video, here are a couple more I think you would enjoy.